Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah. What I want to talk about, inshallah, is the. Okay, it's really big. It's like a major kind of confrontation of what we have in our community. And I'm talking about a culture of blindness, a culture of myopia, okay? Being myopic, being blind to something that is right in front of you. And so there some hadith I want to mention, okay, that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned being that the believer is the mirror for a believer, okay? And in one sense, what that means is that you know, when you listen to your brother or your sister, they may be telling you something that you're not familiar with or that you're not aware of in yourself, okay? And you have to pay attention to that, okay? Ali ibn Abu Talib radiallahu anhu said that the human being is in a dream, goes through this life in a dream, in a sleep and a dream. And they wake up at death. Because at death, then you see the reality. But it becomes the question that I'm talking about is that how does a human being go through life blind to themselves? Okay? And, you know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, all through the Quran, talked about the example of Bani Israel as the example of an ummah that wanders into blindness and into its own destruction. Okay? And then Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam telling the Muslims that you will follow them step by step. Okay? And here in this series, what I've been talking about is how millions of Muslims came to live in the United States, in Europe, in Canada, living in the West, which is obviously a land of da'wah, okay? But for 50, 60, 70 years have been blind to the fact that they're living in a land of da'wah, have been blind to what a great opportunity that is, Islamically speaking, okay? And even blind to the Quran. And I mean even the Mawlanas and Shuyukh. That is the condition that Muslims are in right now. It is unbelievable. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam spoke about a time when even the so-called scholars of Islam would be confused and ignorant. Okay? Because I've talked about how the first word that Allah revealed is about the mission of da'wah. Telling Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to go out in the world and find converts to Allah's deen. And how that is what Rasulullah means. The human being converting to Allah's deen is the dearest thing to Allah. It is the most important thing in Islam. How did Arabs and Desis be so blind for 50, 60 years that you ignored this, and you ignored it to the point that you never set up what it is that converts require just to be able to survive. Okay? And because of that, you lost 90% of the converts and you destroyed so many lives. And now that crime is written in your book. Okay? So, understanding, you know, just some examples, okay, that a person does not see themselves until they're confronted by someone presenting something else, okay? And that's why possibly this series it could be shocking, actually, for a lot of Muslims to find out and to hear from me that Muslims have been here 50 and 60 years ignoring the most important thing in Islam. You know, ignoring the most direct route to the ridha of Allah, to the pleasure of Allah. Ignoring the direct route and the direct connection to the help of Allah. And this is in the Quran. Okay? How can Muslims be so blind? All right? And confused. So it happens to human beings. Okay? Again, we don't see ourselves until we look in a mirror. Okay? But when we're talking about behavior and mentality, and we're talking about culture, we're talking about serious myopia, okay? Serious blindness, okay? So, for example, myself, growing up in, what was basically an all-white town, all right? So, having never really having the discussion about racism, because there were not really enough people of color around, okay, to even honestly get into the discussion. And I mean that literally. In a town of, 70,000 or 100,000 people, I mean, all the years growing up there, I didn't know maybe 20 families, okay, who were people of color, all right? And so the racism that is not like serious. I'm not talking about hate, but I'm talking about the things that white people might do without realizing, okay, that's racist. Okay. That is culture. That is being in a culture in which you don't have self-awareness. Okay, and you won't have until somebody confronts you over it. All right. Now today's Muslims are in a similar situation in which you think that you have Islam. You think that you're doing Islam. You think your Islam is fine. And if you've been paying attention to this series, what I've been presenting to you is that for 50 or 60 years, your entire community ignored the most important thing in Islam. You destroyed the greatest opportunity in the deen. You destroyed, like direct path to success. Okay. And we see now this saying of Rasulullah ﷺ that you will follow them step by step, in which, today's Muslims honestly are so lost from deen and so confused that even the scholars cannot see what is right in front of them. Okay? How do you talk about the Quran? The Quran is Allah's message to humanity, and your community ignored the converts, who are the people who accepted the message from Allah. You talk about Rasulullah. Rasulullah spent his life looking for converts, and when he found them, he spent his life with converts. You talk about Hijrah and Medina. The purpose of Hijrah was converts looking for a place to solve their problems, and the purpose of the community of Medina was to solve the problems of converts. And in 50, 60 years, none of your people realize this. That's how blind you are. It's very serious, So anyway, I hope, this helps, but you have to understand that blindness It applies, it can apply to so many things. You cannot go through life thinking that your Islam is fine. When you did this to the converts, your Islam is a disaster. And I mean even you so-called imams and shuyukh and mawlanas. If you're that blind to Islam, you're in very serious trouble. You better confront this and think very seriously about what I'm telling you, okay? Because you will see what you've done. You will see it Yawm al-Qiyamah. And then you can't do anything about it. And you will never be able to pay the converts for the pain and destruction that you caused. Okay? At that point, then, Jahannam becomes almost inevitable. All right? This is extremely serious. Assalamu alaikum.